Yeah,
Husky's not going away.
no, not going away yet, thankfully. Yeah, so look, as I would say, Husky's like the Hoover of oats at this stage. It's kind of the name that people are asking for, just like Barra was before it for a number of years. I think Husky's starting to fit that bill of reliability. Look, we've had it in trial with the Department of Agriculture since 2007. A lot of people mightn't realize that because it really only got more popular in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's extraordinarily consistent in terms of its yield, and I'll go through that now in a second. We can drill it from, excuse me, Nigel, from mid-October to mid-April. So there's ultra flexibility there. For a person multiplying up oat seed, I mean, Husky, or if you buy oat seed, you can get it delivered there to your sheds the middle of October, and you have until the middle of April to sow it and end up with a very respectable crop of oats, be it winter or spring sown. It has proven winter hardiness in trials and on farm, and I'll go through that in a second. It's a stiff oat to stand. Look, we all know how to manage it at this stage, and I think growers, got on really well with oats this year. I mean, I'd say when all's said and done, there was more people with 4-ton crop of oats out there this year than actually 4-ton crops of winter barley, Nigel, to be fair. And it's early to mature. I mean, a lot of our oat seed, we're always here planning the harvest and what barley will come in and what wheat will come in. And I'll say to the lads, well, you could have oats in here on the last day of July. And then, it does nearly always happen. Winter oats can come into us the last days of July, especially if there's a good year. And that's a great thing for a grower. Get the oats out of the way and get onto other crops as well, because oats can be a difficult crop, especially if it's broken harvest. So look, it's got a lot of characteristics that are important. I mean, that's the Department of Agriculture trials winter and spring since 2007. Husky only in 2 years has been below the average, and that was back in 2007 and 2009. And I suppose, look, Seed Tech took a call that they'd stick with it. They were lucky. I mean, somebody else might have dropped that out, and where we'd be then. We wouldn't have Husky. So it has performed really well. It's generally 2 to 3, 4 points ahead of the average, and it's been the average itself. So it's beaten itself most years. And I don't have the spring oat trials, obviously, for 2021 yet, but I have the 2021 trials, and it's done the same thing again. The average yield there, just for people who might want to know it, if you were to look at the 15 years data, the average yield is about 3.5 tons for the winter oats and about 2.8, 2.9 tons for the spring oats. So there's about a half a ton to the acre benefit from growing a winter versus a spring oat. And look, people know that already, but it's quite important just in terms of, planning to sow it as well. Husky as a winter oat, much better in terms of its reliability. So look, this is the same data set, but compared to controls, and this is kind of important. There is genetic improvement. So the department trials in 2008 yielded kind of 8 tons to the hectare. The department trials in 2021 yielded 10 tons to the hectare. And you can see there's been a nice steady increase with a few bumps along the way. The big bump was 2018 with the drought. Okay, but look, hopefully we wouldn't see a year like that again. In terms of the reliability, Husky is the red line there, or the orange line, and it's above the controls each year, okay? And that's really important, that even though genetic gain, breeders are moving forward, but Husky's still able to outperform the controls. And that's quite important, because if there was better genetics coming on, they're not able to suit us in Ireland as much as Husky is, okay? When you came down to the open day this year, we showed people damage that we saw in our plots, frost or spray damage, probably an interaction between them, to be fair. Look, Andy reported in the Farmers Journal. There was a number of advisors and growers rang us as well in April and May, and I spent a bit of time driving around looking at these crops of oats. At the time, people didn't know what was going on. Generally, people thought it might have been, maybe mosaic, but when we saw it in Seed Tech, we weren't sure until the heads came out. But when the heads came out, then we knew what we were dealing with, because I had seen this before in 2008. And basically, it was frost damage in February or March that affected the head, and the plant then tried to compensate by making more tillers. So when we analysed our trials and when we cut them, we got a yield impact of 38%, which was hugely significant. So our crop surrounding the trials was Husky, did it 4 tons to the acre, just like most growers. But the plots of other varieties inside the trials were kind of, they were nearly 40% reduced in yield, which was huge. And you would have seen that when you came down to us. But more importantly, the bushel was affected. Some of these oats in our trials were actually reduced by 9 bushel points. So there was quite an impact on it, okay? That's a picture that we would have taken in May. And the variety on my left is a spring oat variety drilled in our winter trials, as we do every year. And the variety on my right hand there is Husky, which is its normal development. But what we looked at was, we said, well, that damage, that yellowing, that colouring, how important was it? Because sometimes these things recover. People say, look, it'll be fine, it'll grow out of it. But if you look at the chart there on the right, all I've done there is we scored all the plots for kind of visual damage. And when we scored them, we got a very nice correlation between that and the yield at the end of the day. Husky was the highest yielding variety in our trials at 10.2 or 4 tons to the acre. All the other varieties yielded below Husky, but the visual damage correlated to yield. So if a variety went off colour, if it had those tillers, it actually had a big drop in yield, okay? So it was just a handy way of predicting. People often ask us about that, how bad will it turn out? It was pretty much correlated with the damage we saw in May, okay?